Okay, I'm just going to get started by welcoming everyone. Welcome to Tung. Welcome to everyone online who's joining as well. Nice to see everyone in class. Today's class is all about Chapter 13, which is the chapter that is titled Identifying Cravings, Cultivating Non-Craving and Analysis of the Mind. This is where you're learning how to go in and almost surgically remove certain cravings, desires, attachments in the mind, because everything up to this point in the group learning program is giving you the foundational teachings that need to be well underway. But now you can actually go in and learn how to surgically remove some of these cravings, desires, attachments. And having the Eightfold Path well underway is going to be able to make it easy for you to be able to do what it is that we talk about today. But I'm going to give you some more tools that are going to help you to be able to eliminate some of these cravings, desires, attachments. So I'd like to welcome all of you, and at the same time invite you to join for meditation, because we start each one of our classes with some chanting, and then we're going to do some guidance to be able to guide you in the meditation. Then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're all meditating together. Then we're going to come out of that with some more chanting, and then that's where I'll start today's class. So if you'd like to join for meditation, you're more than welcome to. I'm going to get started with chanting, and then if you'd like to join in, you can do that, and then I'll be back in with the guidance. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Bhutang Bhagavanang Abhivateyami Savakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusrang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect. Just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind focused on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. สัมมาสัมพุทโธมะคะวะโอตังมะคะวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมะคะวะตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสภะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมโมโนสคาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาธัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you. Nice to see everyone in class today. Welcome. As I was sharing last week, this week I'm going to teach you how to go in and surgically remove some of your cravings, desires, attachments. What I'm going to teach you today is going to be able to apply to a good 80 or 90% of the cravings, desires, attachments that your mind has. You need to have the Eightfold Path well underway in order to be able to really benefit from the things that I'm sharing with you today. It's helpful to make sure you understand that first. And that's why we spent the bulk of the first part of this group learning program making sure you really understood that inside and out. And we taught the Eightfold Path at certain times, but then there was all these connected teachings that kind of plug into it. Where now in this group learning program and in this book, it kind of starts pivoting a bit, where you start learning all these specialized things that you're going to need to know above and beyond the Eightfold Path, but yet all of these things integrate into the Eightfold Path. Just like always, you guys are going to be able to ask questions as we go. I'm going to first teach this to you, and then we can have like a little group activity if you guys like, where you guys participate in building this skill that I'm going to help you guys to be able to build. But let me teach you guys first this identifying cravings, cultivating non-craving, and analysis of the mind. Normally what I do is I spend time at the beginning of this class because I never know who's in this class. There could be people in the class today that weren't necessarily here last week, and I looked, and most of the people that are in the class today were here last week. But for the most part, I think you guys understand what is craving, desire, attachment. The mind's longing, yearning, chasing after the objects of your affection. And you understand that this is what's causing the mind to be discontent. That if it gets what it wants, it gets pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. But if it doesn't get what it wants, it gets painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others, even the guilt and shame and fear and stress, anxiety, and all those kinds of things. And then there's the neither painful painful nor pleasant feelings that are coming into the mind as well, like uncomfortableness or shyness and things like that. So this is the first part where I usually make sure people really understand craving, desire, attachment. But we've been doing that all the way through the program. And I think the vast majority of the people who are learning have already learned that. Then what I share with students is that what you might come to understand as you're learning the teachings of the Buddha, of course, you're cultivating wisdom, but you're cultivating wisdom about how to eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments. That's the number one goal on the path to enlightenment, is to cultivate wisdom. And what that wisdom is helping you to learn how to do is eliminate the cravings, desires, attachments. Because the ultimate goal of the path to enlightenment is to eliminate all the discontent feelings where you're no longer experiencing anger, sadness, frustration, and others. So you need to be able to eliminate the cravings, desires, attachments, because that's the cause of what's causing them. But how could you ever eliminate these cravings, desires, attachments if you didn't understand how to identify them? So I'm going to teach you how to identify your cravings, desires, attachments. In addition to meditation, being able to identify your cravings, desires, attachments is the second most important skill that you could ever develop on the path to enlightenment. You're going to need to be able to look inward and figure out, what is your mind longing, yearning for? Because you're going to need to be able to eliminate those. And that's where your mindfulness comes in, having awareness of mind. That's why you're practicing breathing mindfulness meditation regularly, to be able to develop that mindfulness or that introspection, to be able to look at the mind and see that it's longing, yearning for something, that it's craving for something. So that breathing mindfulness meditation and your generosity is training your mind to develop your awareness of mind, your concentration, and to be able to let go, let go, let go. So that mental discipline section of the Eightfold Path of right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration is very important to be well underway. And as you have that well underway, then you can actually move into understanding what I'm going to teach today, which is whenever you're experiencing discontentedness, whether it's a pleasant feeling, painful feeling, or neither painful nor pleasant, you can use this like a red light on the dashboard of your car, alerting you that there's something going on in your mind and you need to pay attention to it. You need to look at it. If you were driving a car and the red light came on, you wouldn't keep driving that car. You would probably pull over, and if you had some skills, you'd probably pop the hood and you start looking inside the car to see if you can figure out what's going on with this car. But if you didn't have any skills, you'd probably take your car to the mechanic and have them investigate what's going on with the car so that you can solve this problem. So your discontentedness is the same way. It's the red light. It's alerting you that, hey, you've got something going on in your mind. There's a pollution of craving, desire, attachment there. So whether it's anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, that's all a red light. That's the painful feelings. But even the conditioned pleasant feelings, they're a red light too, alerting you that your mind's craving, desiring, attached to something. Remember, that's the conditioned pleasant feelings, that based on some condition, the mind's then going to get happy and excited. But if you allow the mind to do that, the painful feelings are waiting right around the corner for you, because when that condition is no longer met, that is producing the pleasant feelings, then the mind's going to experience the painful feelings. So you need to be able to see these conditioned pleasant feelings as just as much a part of the problem, because what the Buddha is guiding you towards is unconditioned happiness and unconditioned joy. So these conditioned feelings, whether they're pleasant, painful, or neither painful nor pleasant, they're the red light alerting you, like a flashing light on the dashboard of your car, hey, you've got a problem within your mind. So now what you would do in that car analogy is you would pull over and you would start looking inside the car. The same thing is true. You need to start looking inside the mind and figure out, what is the mind longing, yearning for here? There's some craving, desire, attachment that the mind's longing, yearning for. You need to be able to figure that out. And if you can't figure that out, because early on when you're first developing this skill, you might not have the ability to see what your mind's longing, yearning for. And in this analogy of taking your car to the auto mechanic in this scenario is your teacher. If you have a teacher that you can talk with and you can explain what you're experiencing, they can help you to develop this skill. And if you did this 2, 3, maybe 4 or 5 times at the most, eventually you'll be able to have this skill where you can look inward yourself. But you may need some help from a teacher to be able to develop this. That you might say, hey, look, I'm really discontent here and I have no idea what my attachments are. And we'll kind of ask you some questions to be able to help guide you to be able to figure that out. Okay? So Use these discontent feelings as the red light on the dashboard of your car, alerting you that something's going on in the mind. There's some cravings, desires, attachments that are causing this, and you need to pull over. You need to look inward, be introspective and reflective to figure out what are your cravings, desires, attachments. So now I'm going to teach you this process of how to walk through surgically removing your cravings, desires, attachments if you're using the discontentedness as a red light on the dashboard of your car. So when this discontentedness is arising and you see it as a red light, then if you know the Eightfold Path, then you would know that you would like to cut that off and let it go. That's the first step. Whenever discontentedness is arising, whether it's a pleasant feeling, a painful feeling, or neither painful nor pleasant, cut that off and let it go. And you'd like to catch it as soon as possible. Remember, there's the bodily sensations, there's the feelings, there's the condition of the mind, and then there's the mental objects. Those are the four foundations of mindfulness. And if you can catch it as a bodily sensation, great. But early in your development on the path, you're not going to be able to catch it every single time as a bodily sensation. It is going to become a feeling sometime. And if you don't cut it off as a bodily sensation, cut it off as a feeling. And if you don't cut it off there, then it's going to affect the condition of the mind. For a few minutes, a few hours, a few days, you're going to experience these discontent feelings. And you'd like to cut it off there, because otherwise it's going to feed these mental objects, these deeply rooted containers in the mind. So the very first thing is from the Eightfold Path, that you use your mindfulness or awareness of mind to notice when the discontent feelings are arising, and then apply right effort to cut that off and let it go. So when you cut off and let go and you regain your composure, whether that's a few minutes or a few days or what have you, then you would like to move to step number 2, where you start reflecting, you start looking inward and figuring out, what is the mind craving? What is it longing, yearning for? Because you already saw the stress or anxiety, or you already saw the fear or the guilt or shame, and you cut that off. But now you need to move to step 2, where you start looking, what is the mind craving? What does it want to be permanent? The mind is longing, yearning for something. What is it that it's longing, yearning for? And if you can figure this out, excellent. If you need help, that's where you reach out to your teacher, and your teacher is there to help you. And oftentimes early in practice, it's more than one craving. It's very rarely just one craving. There's usually 2, 3, or 4, maybe 5 or 6 that's even in the mind, that the mind's longing, yearning for this particular thing. So you need to be able to identify, what is the mind longing, yearning for, and what is it craving to be permanent. Then you move to step number 3, which is you develop a plan that addresses this specific craving, desire, attachment that caused the discontentedness, while continuing to maintain your breathing mindfulness meditation and your generosity, because that's what's going to train your mind to really target the discontentedness by eliminating the craving, desire, attachment, is by working with the breathing mindfulness meditation and the generosity. But now there's going to be this new plan, and I'm going to give you some examples of this, but there's this new thing that you're going to be able to do, that because you have breathing mindfulness meditation and generosity well underway, and you're cutting off and letting go, there's this new thing with step number 3, that you're going to be able to create this plan to go in and almost surgically remove your cravings, desires, attachments. Then you just repeat this process every single time you're experiencing any discontentedness. Okay, so let me walk you through this with a real life example from my life so that you can understand how this works. One time I left my house and I was driving in my wife's truck because I didn't have a car at the time, and I was driving down the street and I got stopped at this red light, and I reached down to get my phone at the red light, and the phone wasn't in my pocket, and I noticed this fear come up into the mind. And right away, I cut that off and let it go, right? Because the fear was coming up, and I cut it off and let it go, and cut it off and let it go. And I happened to be sitting at this red light, right? And then as I was at the red light, I started to reflect. What is it that the mind's longing, yearning for? There's something that the mind wants to be permanent. What is it? Well, it was the phone. The mind wanted that mobile phone to be permanent. And when the mind realized that it didn't have the phone, that's when the fear came up, because the mind wasn't getting its craving, desire, attachment fulfilled. So I realized that my mind was attached to the phone. And one of the first things that my mind thought about doing is swinging a U-turn and going back and getting the phone. But I knew that that wasn't going to solve the problem. Going back to get the phone doesn't solve the problem, because the problem is the mind's craving for permanence. It's longing, yearning for permanence, and it didn't feel comfortable to go outside without the phone. There was this fear that was coming up in the mind. It wanted to hold on to this phone. So now, realizing that I was attached to the phone and going back to the house and getting it doesn't actually solve the craving, desire, attachment. It just allows it to stay in place. I then moved to step number 3, all while sitting there at the traffic light. I started developing a plan of how to fix this. So what I decided to do is I decided to stay outside longer than what I was initially planning to be outside for. I was only supposed to be outside for like an hour and a half, do a couple of things and come home. But instead, I decided to stay out for longer. I went out to eat. I went to the movies. I walked around in the mall. I was out for like 5 or 6 hours that day. And then when I came home, I didn't just run to the phone and check the phone. I just left the phone where it was at. I waited 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, and then I went and checked the phone. Right? So then I realized, okay, I was able to go outside without this phone. So I waited about 2 or 3 days, and then I went outside again, purposefully leaving the phone at home. I needed to put the mind in that situation where it could go outside and distance itself from this phone. So now I went outside again for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, whatever amount of time it was. And then when I came home, I didn't just run right to the phone. I again waited for 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours. And when I went outside that second time, I didn't have any fear, but there was some awkwardness in the mind. There was like some uncomfortableness. It just didn't feel right to be outside without the phone. But nonetheless, it was a lot less than before. The first time I was out, there was this fear. The second time I was out, it had diminished. And that was indicating to me that some of that craving had diminished. But there was still craving because I felt that awkwardness, that ickiness in the mind. So then I waited another 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 days, and then I again left the phone at home, and I went outside and went around without the phone, and I noticed that I was quite peaceful, quite joyful. It was like no big deal that I was outside without the phone. And then again, when I came home, I didn't just go check the phone again. I just left it where it was at, and then came and checked it 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours later. So I was pretty confident that I had eliminated this craving, desire, attachment by just doing this 3 times, going outside without the phone. And that was the benefit of having breathing mindfulness meditation and generosity well underway, that my mind was willing to let that go. But then about 2 months later, I once again accidentally left the phone at home. And I was driving down the street and I reached down for the phone and I realized it wasn't there. And I was like, oh, well, and I just kept going. There was no fear. There was no awkwardness. There was nothing. It was just like, don't have the phone. Oh, well. And I just kept on going, right? No big deal. Right? And I could tell that the mind had eliminated its craving. Well, then a year later, I had accidentally dropped the phone and the screen completely shattered. And I picked up the phone and I looked at it and I started smiling and laughing. And I was like, of course it's broken because it's impermanent, right? Unfortunately, my wife had another phone that I could use. It was a pretty old phone and I could use that for a while, right? But in this situation, if the mind was attached to the phone and the screen broke, there would be discontentedness there. There would be anger or frustration or irritation or annoyance or something like that. But I noticed that there wasn't any of that there. So those 2 separate times that the mind wasn't expecting there to be any impermanence, and there was, but the mind was completely peaceful and joyful. So this is an example of something that I was attached to. The mind was getting pleasant feelings from having this phone, and I needed to distance myself from that in order to train the mind to let it go. And then once you train your mind to let it go, then if you're going to use a phone, have a phone. There's no harm in having a phone. The craving, desire, attachment isn't the phone itself. It's the way that the mind longs and yearns for the phone, wanting it to be permanent. So I use this example because it illustrates this step-by-step process really well, but also there's a good chance that you're attached to your phone. A lot of us have these devices and they serve a lot of purposes for us, and you might actually be attached to either the phone or the contents of the phone or what it's able to do for you and what you're able to accomplish with it. So you're most likely going to need to do the same type of thing that I just described. And it would be really helpful for you to do that, to be able to distance yourself from this, right? But then there's going to be certain things where you're having aversion, where you're pushing away you're pushing things away. You don't want this thing to be in your life. This is where you're experiencing painful feelings, and now you're trying to push this thing away. So you can go through this same process with those things too. So I'll give you an example of this. There's a fruit here in Asia. It's called durian, and they have it in other places too, but here in Asia, it's pretty popular. This durian fruit, if you ask me, I think it smells like poop, and if you put it in your mouth, I've never had poop in my mouth, but if I did, I think it would be just like this fruit because it has the same consistency of what I think poop would feel like in your mouth. And it tastes like poop, it feels like poop, it smells like poop. And the first few times that I ever tried to eat it, I was repulsed by it. Right? And this was before I was learning and practicing the teachings very closely. So I was repulsed by this and I was pushing it away. I didn't want to be anywhere near it. In fact, here in Thailand, there's some hotels that don't let you bring this fruit into their hotel because it smells, quite strong. They have a big picture of a durian fruit with a big, circle and a cross through it. And they're like, no durian fruit is allowed in this hotel. Well, realizing that my mind was averse to this and it was pushing it away, it was having painful feelings as a result of this fruit, I needed to actually bring this fruit into my life, and I needed to actually desensitize the mind to this in order to train the mind to let go of the craving, desire, attachment that was causing this. So eating the raw fruit was too much of a challenge for the mind. So what I did instead is I used to eat durian cake because I like cake, I like cookies, so have a little bit of durian inside the cake. I was able to eat the durian cake, and I started associating that smell of the durian fruit, which wasn't quite as strong in the cake. I started associating it with something that tastes nice, right? And I ate that for a while. And then eventually I ate the raw durian fruit, and it was just fine. But it took me time to be able to eat that durian cake for a period of time to get to the point where I was then able to eat the raw fruit. And now I can eat durian fruit and the mind's not repulsed by it. In terms of the odor or the flavor or the consistency in the mouth, none of those things are problematic to the mind any longer. So I needed to bring this thing into my life because the mind was pushing it away. So anything that your mind's holding on to and you have pleasant feelings from it, you're getting those conditioned pleasant feelings, you're going to need to distance yourself from it. And in some cases, once you train your mind to let it go, you can actually reintegrate it back in, like the mobile phone. The things that you're pushing away and that you're averse to, you're going to need to expose your mind to that. Let me give you another example of that. Let's just say you were afraid of large crowds and you had fear when you're around large crowds. Well, never going around large crowds and pushing away the situation doesn't actually solve the problem, because the cause of the problem is still inside your mind. You still have this craving, desire, attachment to only be around small groups of people. So the way that you solve this is you go around some large crowds. You're going to need to do that in order to desensitize the mind to it. So if you're around a large crowd and you didn't know that your mind had this craving, desire, attachment, and this discontentedness was arising when you're around a large crowd and you notice stress and anxiety and fear, you'd like to cut that off and let it go. That's step one. Then step two, you reflect on this and you look inward. You're like, what's my craving, desire, attachment here? Oh, I want to be around just a few people. The mind's longing and yearning to only be around a few people. And when I'm around more than 10, 20 people, the mind's uncomfortable with that. Okay, so now you know what your craving, desire, attachment is. Then you develop a plan to go in and surgically remove this, which is you start going around larger groups of people and you start exposing the mind to this slowly but surely. And now eventually you desensitize the mind to this and you're just as comfortable being around a handful of people as you are a large crowd. And your mind's completely joyful and peaceful no matter what. If you can only be peaceful around a small group of people, then your mind's not free. It's not liberated. If you're only happy when you go outside with your mobile phone, then your mind's not liberated. It's not free. If you're only happy when you're eating fruit that you particularly like, maybe strawberries or blueberries or apples or oranges, then your mind's not free. You're trying to get to the point where the mind's free, and it can be peaceful and joyful whether you have your phone with you or not, whether you're eating a particular fruit or not, whether you're with a certain number of people or not. You can be completely peaceful and joyful in all these situations. Because what the unenlightened mind is going to want to do, because of its lack of wisdom, is it's going to want to turn around and make a U-turn and go get that mobile phone because it wants it to be permanent. And it thinks that's going to solve your problem, but it's not. Or what the mind's going to want to do with its lack of wisdom is push this durian fruit away and not have this fruit, or push these large crowds away and never be around these large crowds. But that doesn't solve your actual problem. The mind is still bound up. So you would like to get to the point where you're not doing that any longer, and you can move beyond this, and then your mind can be free. So this is what I have to share with you guys today. This is a process that you would like to follow as you're noticing any discontentedness. You cut that off and let it go. And when you regain your composure, however long that takes, a few minutes, hours, or days, you then start reflecting to look inward to figure out what your mind's longing, yearning for. What is it craving and desiring? What is it craving to be permanent? And then once you identify what those are, and it could be multiple things, then you develop this plan to either distance yourself from it because it's something you're getting pleasant feelings from, or you either include it in your life because it's something you're having painful feelings towards where the mind's repulsed. And now you do that over repeated sessions until you desensitize the mind and you feel comfortable going outside with or without your phone. You feel comfortable with this fruit or without this fruit. You feel comfortable in these large crowds or not. And you just repeat this over and over and over again with each individual situation, all the while keeping your breathing mindfulness meditation and your generosity continuing to go forward. So that's helping your mind to let go, and soften up and let go. Okay, so if you guys have questions, you can put this into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section. Or if you're in Zoom, you can raise your hand electronically and ask any questions you like that way. So I see we have some questions here. Looks like we have something coming in from Janae on Zoom. She says, does all discontentedness boil down to some sort of craving for permanence? Yes. Every single round of discontentedness, whether it's pleasant feelings, painful feelings, or neither painful nor pleasant, it's always because of craving, desire, attachment. The mind's longing, yearning for something. And if it gets it, it gets those pleasant feelings. If it doesn't, it gets the painful ones. And then there's the neither painful nor pleasant feelings that come in when you're not getting what you want to. So every single type of discontentedness is caused by craving, desire, attachment. It's not possible for you to experience discontentedness in any other way. And that's why when you completely eradicate craving, desire, attachment from the mind, your mind will be completely peaceful and joyful, no longer experiencing any discontentedness whatsoever. Okay, let me see if we have any other questions anywhere. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions anywhere. All right, so maybe you guys understand this. It's pretty straightforward. And when you get comfortable implementing this in multiple situations, it's like a best practice. It's like a methodology. If you've ever experienced a business world where there's a certain methodology or a certain best practice, and then you just apply it in multiple situations, that's what this is. No matter what your craving, desire, attachment is, there's a way for you to eliminate it. And in about 80 or 90% of the situations, you can do this. There's some rare situations where this is going to happen naturally. You don't have to implement it like the way that I'm describing here. But in about 80 or 90% of the situations, you can implement this type of plan. So if you guys would like, what we can do is, we can do this group activity. If you guys would like. It's totally up to you guys. If you would like to develop this skill, what you can do is you can either share in Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom, and you can say, hey, David, here's my discontentedness. Here's the situation. Here's the feeling that I experienced. And maybe you say, I have no idea what my cravings are, and I have no idea how to create a plan to fix it. Can you help me? And then I'll help you. Or you could say, here's the discontentedness, here's the situation, here's the feelings that I had, here's the cravings that I think I have, but I don't know how to put together a plan and address that. And I'll help you with that. Or you could say, here's the situation, here's the discontentedness, here's the cravings, desires, attachments that I think I have in the mind, and then here's the plan that I think I can put together and actually address this. And then I will help you and I'll give you some insight on that. So if you'd like to do this, this will help you to develop your skills. So I imagine you guys have some certain situations that you know your mind gets discontent in, and you can start applying this right away. So if you'd like to build this skill here in our class today, I'll do this group activity with you and you can share. So if you'd like to put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or if you'd like to raise your hand in Zoom, unmute your microphone and share, you can share any of these 3 different things, and then I will help you to be able to develop this skill. So let me know if you guys would like to share and do this and build up this skill. Okay, it looks like maybe Ted or Kristen are volunteering. Go ahead, guys.
Hi, Teacher David. Can you hear me okay? I'm a little far away.
We can hear you.
Okay. So about a year ago, when I sort of started practicing the teachings with you and learning, I had this fear of, and I've spoken to you about it before, fear of being in front of a group of people and teaching. And I remember you saying it was personal existence view, and that was sort of keeping me from getting in front of this group and teaching after all this training and money I spent to then eventually teach. And so when I finally got my certification to teach, I was so afraid that I just couldn't do it. Like I could not get my mind to quiet down enough to stand in front of a group of people and teach a class. And so it took me another year for me to actually finally get the courage to just schedule a class. And when I finally did schedule the class, I had to work through the sensations that constantly came up anytime I thought about being in front of a group of people and speaking. Like my body would feel all those sensations, the anxiety, the worry, the fear. And I remember that, the week or 2 building up to the day of teaching, I had to just constantly cut it off, let it go, cut it off and let it go at the bodily sensation. And by the time I got to the day of teaching, and I just kept reminding myself it's impermanent, it's only an hour, I can get through an hour of anything, right? But cutting it off at the bodily sensation over and over and over and over again, I was able to kind of do it. Like I got there and I was able to finally teach this class. Mm-hmm. But I remember it was like starting at the bodily sensation, because before I didn't even know the bodily sensations were even there. Like it just kind of overwhelmed me. But when I started there at the physical part, it seems so much more manageable for me to kind of cut off, and so that I can stay clear-minded. And anyway, so long story short, I've been teaching now for about 4 months, and I actually enjoy it, which I never thought would happen. But it was definitely the craving of, I believe, was reading about what people thought, right? The personal existence view, the conceit, the ego, and being able to kind of like just cut that off at the bodily sensation was the only way that I was able to then get to that place of being able to even stand up in front of a room and talk.
Yes. So what was going on here is the mind was craving to be perceived by others in a certain way. That was the permanence that the mind was craving. And the mind didn't think that standing up and teaching, you were going to be able to be perceived that way. So the mind wasn't getting what it wanted, which was to be perceived as maybe intelligent or smart or whatever it was that you wanted the audience to be able to perceive you as, and the mind didn't think that it was going to be able to do that. So that's why I was experiencing that stress and anxiety, those painful feelings. And I remember us talking about this, and one of the things I shared with you is that you just need to do it, right? You need to expose the mind to it, because you were pushing this away, right? That was the painful feelings. That was the repulsion or the aversion that the mind had. And you needed to expose the mind to it. And that's what was going to take care of that and get you to the point where your mind would be comfortable doing that. So this, what you're describing, is essentially confirming for all of those that are participating in this class that this works, because you can see here that Kristen did this and it actually worked for her. Now she's at the point where she enjoys teaching, right? Because her mind no longer has that aspect of craving, desire, attachment, wanting people to perceive her a certain way in that situation. So is that true, Kristen?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. All right. Well, thank you for sharing. I don't see there's anything there for me to help you with because you've already got it figured out.
You helped along the way. I couldn't have done it without you. So
yeah, pleased to help you. Pleased to help you. Okay, so Gala has a question here in Facebook. She says, "Hello, David. I feel discontentedness because I don't know if I should tell an ex-partner happy birthday. I guess my craving is contact and him knowing I still think about him." Okay, so when you've had a relationship, particularly a personal relationship with someone, and it hasn't worked out and you guys go your separate ways, it's best to just go your separate ways. You still have an attachment there. That's why you're thinking about this, and that's why you're even considering to go back and wish this person a happy birthday. So at one point, you used to get pleasant feelings from this person. Your mind's holding on, craving for this person to be permanent. And what you need to be able to do is distance yourself from that so your mind can actually let go. So when you have a personal relationship that doesn't go well, like a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, it's typically best to just completely go in opposite directions. Fully let the mind to be able to let go and just move on with your life. If you've had a business relationship where something hasn't gone well, and now you guys have stepped away from the relationship, there are situations where it can be best to go back and repair that, because it's going to affect your livelihood and your ability to sustain your life and your livelihood. So sometimes a business relationship, it makes sense to go back, maybe if you need to apologize or make amends or whatever it is, so that you guys can overcome that. And at least you're not creating any more, or you're not experiencing any more unwholesome karma there that's going to affect your ability to support yourself. Those types of relationships you can go back and usually solve. But there's usually such a deep attachment in personal relationships that it's not possible for that to occur. And that's why it's usually best to just move on. So that's what I would recommend that you do here, is just completely let go, completely move on, because your mind hasn't fully let go here. That's why you're still considering to call this person and contact this person and wish them a happy birthday, when in reality, you guys had a relationship, it didn't work out for whatever reason, and now you guys have chosen to move on. Whether you choose to do it this way or not, of course, is a decision for you to make, but in terms of helping you to train your mind and eliminate your craving, desire, attachment, this is usually the best way to approach that kind of thing. All right, looks like maybe Joe or Adela have a question, or you'd like to participate in this group activity.
Yes, hi, Teacher David. This is Adela. I have a similar situation to what Kristen experienced. I also get very anxious and fearful when I'm speaking in front of a group of people. And I work in an industry at a job where that's required of me sometimes to present, and that's kind of encouraged. So when I get on a call and I'm presenting and speaking, it starts out okay. Like, I recognize those feelings that I have of anxiety prior to the call, and then it starts out okay. And then, like, in the middle of the call and in the middle of the presentation, I'll get like, my heart is racing, I'll feel like almost like a panic attack of sorts. I'm at a point where I recognize that this is, that personal existence view and wanting people to perceive me a certain way when I'm presenting. But I'm not at a point yet where I can let go of those feelings, especially when I'm like mid-call. It's almost as if I start panicking more because I'm having these feelings, rather than being able to let them go and like recenter myself.
Okay.
So I just wanted to get maybe tips or on how to eliminate all this.
Yeah, this is the way to help with public presenting. This is the way that you approach this. What you normally do is you come up with some presentation, be it, you may not even deliver it professionally at some point, but you come up with maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes of content that you would normally present. And now what you would like to do is you'd like to do that presentation on your own in a room by yourself in front of a mirror. Right? And now you're doing the presentation alone by yourself. And you might need to do that a couple of times to build up your comfort level with that. Then you do it some more, but you invite in some people that you know are going to be supportive, like maybe Joe or your children or some other family or friends that you know are going to be supportive 100%. And you can now present to this 1, 2, 3, 4 people that are sitting there. And now you get comfortable with that. And you might need to do it more than one time to gain that comfort. And then you increase it a little bit more. And now what you're able to do is you're able to get comfortable in each one of these environments with more and more people until a point where eventually you can present to your work in your business meeting. So this is the way to gradually increase the mind's stimulation and contact to be able to actually present content. This is the way that I train my mind as well. And I started this in the professional field as well, where we would call it wood chucking. If you think about like a big piece of wood and you're chucking off big chunks of wood, you would like to do that by yourself in front of a mirror, where you're chucking off big chunks of wood and you start figuring out how to put all these pieces together. Then you invite some people in that'll just sit there and listen to you, and you've got some warm bodies in the room, and now they're just listening to you. And you're not looking for their feedback of whether you were good or bad or anything like that. You're just looking to have some physical people in the room as you're presenting. And then you go to the third step where you go beyond that. And if you need more than that, you can increment it up that way. And that's the way to get comfortable with presenting to different groups of people. And that'll help you to overcome your personal existence view by exposing the mind to it. Because this is one of the things that the mind's averse to. You're pushing it away, that the mind's repulsed by this. So you're going to need to actually expose the mind to it. But you can do it in this incremental process to gradually increase it so that you're not overburdening the mind. Because if you go into 20 people in the business field and just start presenting to 20 or 30 or 50 people, it's like, whoa, that's way too much. And the mind's kind of overburdened by that. But if you start small, just with you in a mirror, and then maybe 2 or 3 or other people that you're close to that will be supportive, and then increment it up from there, the mind can get more acclimated to this. Because remember, the mind doesn't like impermanence. One way to say that the mind craves permanence is to say that the mind does not like impermanence. It doesn't like change. So if you can incrementally create this change in such small little steps that the mind almost doesn't even recognize what you're doing, it'll find it to be more comfortable and more accommodating. So that's why you go with like just you presenting in front of a mirror, and then you presenting to just 2 or 3 people or one person that you're really close to. And then you increment it up from there. And those small little baby steps like that, it's such small little baby steps that the mind almost doesn't recognize it, but it's still having to let go of its craving, desire, attachment and become better and better at what it's doing to present to an audience.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. I think, Joe, you have a question? I just started teaching classes here at the temple at 9 p.m., so people don't know that I'm teaching here at 9 p.m., but Joe knows, so Joe's here with a question.
Okay, Teacher David. Yeah, my situation is trying to find validation through sex and women, and it's making me very discontent.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is something that we've talked about, and I'll share what I've already shared with you privately so that they can benefit from this. So in this situation, if someone has a craving for sexual contact and maybe they're having lots of partners, they're getting pleasant feelings out of all this sexual contact. So that's a situation where you need to distance your mind from this. And what we've talked about is moving outside of the city, because Joe lives here in the city, and in Thailand, there's lots of beautiful people walking around. It's warm. People are showing lots of skin and different things like that. And as a young man, Joe walking around seeing all of this, yeah, the craving's going to come up in the mind. So what you would like to do is distance yourself from this. And what I've recommended to Joe is that he considers moving outside the city and living outside the city for a period of time, multiple months, if not a year or two, living outside the city. But he's still going to need to come into the city to participate in these classes, and you're going to need groceries and things like this and different things. So he's still going to be getting some amount of contact, but very minimal compared to what you get now, right? You just walk out on your front doorstep, and there you are, right in the middle of all the people, walking around in the city. So that's what I would recommend for you, is distance yourself from it. And then the things that you've been using in order to get access to people, you've already started distancing yourself, like deleting apps and stuff like that. That's also distancing yourself from it. Another thing you can do, since your access to women has been through the apps on your phone, is you can take your phone and you can bury it. You can put it in a box and then put it inside of a small bag that you have to zipper the bag, put that bag inside of a larger suitcase and lock that down. You have 3 or 4 or 5 levels. So, because probably at nighttime, that's when the craving comes up the most, because you're probably sitting around in your room, bored, lonely, thinking about, gosh, I could be with a woman and that would be so much better. So that's your challenging time. So if you bury your phone, say 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, whatever time that if you normally have this craving arise around 10 p.m. at night, around 8, 9 o'clock, bury your phone somewhere into multiple layers, because then when the craving comes up, you're going to have to go through all those layers to be able to get to your phone. And your mind's not going to necessarily be willing to do that. But even if it starts doing that, it gives you more time to catch your mind and be like, no, I'm not interested in doing this. Because you're going to have to open up the big suitcase. You're going to have to open up the medium-sized suitcase. You're going to have to go inside the backpack. You're going to have to go inside the box. And now you're going to have to get your phone and turn it on. Right? And it's giving you 5 minutes or so to be able to catch yourself and cut that craving off, to be able to see what it's actually doing. So this is another thing that we actually haven't talked about yet, that you can bury your phone like that so that you're distancing yourself from access to the women, because that's typically how you're accessing it. All right. So let me see if we have any other questions anywhere. You're welcome, Gala, sorry. Still not pronouncing your name 100% accurate. Oh, we have some more questions here. Okay, so it looks like Kristen and Ted might have a question, or did you guys just leave your hand
David,
up?
it's Ted. Thank you. How to pose this question. It's not, there's been a lot of examples of actual physical acts, like teaching a class, speaking in front of people. I think what I suffer from a lot is everything that precedes an actual action. Like fear is a really big one, and what sucks about that is that my mind will create scenarios that are probably so far off of what I'm actually looking to accomplish. But it definitely takes the wind out of my sail to actually try something. Or so I guess that sensation, if fear is a sensation, right off the bat would be a place to cut it off and let it go. Of course, stepping up my practice of meditation and mindfulness meditation, but and I'm just using fear as an example, but that's usually the dominant feeling or sensation that I have prior to anything that I may do. So I guess that's my dilemma, if I want to call it that, and if that's even a question.
what's the situation, Ted, that the fear is arising? Because we need to hear about the contact that you're having through the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, the body, or the mind. Once we understand that contact, then I can help you to develop a plan. And because we need to be able to figure out what's the craving.
Off the top of my head, I'll use pickleball I play a lot of pickleball here in Florida, and say a fear is going and playing horribly, and what are the people going to say, or what, this is a poor example, but it is valid. Am I going to play up to their expectations, or personal existence view comes to mind immediately. That would be one. I'm sorry, I can't come up with one off the top of my head, but it just, I'm dominated by a lot of fear, or looking to start a job somewhere, to bring a little money in, and I will shoot down everything that comes across my mind with these delusions I have usually about, that won't work, or this won't work. And I know I'm not giving you any detailed information, but that's what comes up in my mind a lot.
Okay, well, let's go with the pickleball one, because that's one that's pretty straightforward. Both of these have to deal with personal existence view, where the mind's wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. So it's craving that. That's the permanence that the mind's craving. And when you go out there and you don't play well, your mind's not getting what you want, which is to be perceived as, big man on campus, right? So the way that you do this is because the mind's experiencing the painful feelings when you're not playing well, is you would actually like to go out and expose the mind to this, and even intentionally don't play well. Go out with like a friend, or like, I don't know if Kristen plays pickleball or something, where you go out and you intentionally don't play well, and you get used to going out and enjoying the activity, that it's enjoyable to spend time with people and play games, that the goal isn't to win. The goal isn't to look good in front of other people. The goal is to go out and just enjoy the activity with the people around you. And you would like to be able to enjoy it, whether you're playing well or you're not playing well. So if you go out with somebody that, you can maybe kind of like fluff around and you know that they understand what you're doing, where you can just go out and not play well intentionally. And now you can enjoy that and even laugh at yourself that you're not playing well. And now you can leave the court and just feel completely fine that you had a good time regardless. And now by you going and doing that a couple of times targeted with some friends or people that are close to you, now when you go out and play with all the guys or whoever it is that you're playing with, there's going to be times where you don't play well because of impermanence. You can't always play well, right? Or there's just going to be someone who's better than you on the court, right? So now if you've done that 2 or 3 or 4 targeted sessions with people that are close to you, when you go out with your friends and you're playing with the guys or whoever it is, now there's going to be times where you don't play well, and you need to be attentive to your mind to make sure that you don't allow the mind to dip into those painful feelings, that you just focus on enjoying the game, enjoying the conversation, enjoying the activity, enjoying the exercise. And that's why you're out there. It's just to enjoy your time with the people, not to be perceived a certain way and not to win. It's just to have fun hanging out with people.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, looks like Alberto or Martha has a question. Go ahead, guys.
Hi, teacher David.
Hello.
My question is regarding my meditation. So, for example, this week I had 2 job interviews. They were virtual, but that I think affected my mind, and I was not able to focus during my meditation, and that created discontentedness throughout the day. I was like, I 2-3 days without getting there where I like to feel peaceful, and I couldn't achieve that, and I was like, I don't know what to do in those cases when my mind is like that and I feel this discontentedness.
So am I understanding this right, that when you meditate, you feel great, but then when you're not meditating, you don't feel good about that?
Let me elaborate. I feel like when I have something in my mind that, for example, I was worried about these interviews, or not worried, but I had that in mind all the time. Hey, I need to prepare. I need to write these possible questions and all this. I feel that affected my meditation, and I was not doing a good meditation. So I have a craving for a good meditation, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so a few things here is, first, it's important not to judge your meditation as being good or bad. That's the mind's conceit and its central desire, trying to look at the meditation, and you're basing your feelings and emotions based on whether you feel like you had a good meditation or a bad meditation. So you got to get away from judging your meditation as good or bad and just see all meditation as beneficial. Even if you get to the end of your meditation, you're like, whoa, the mind is so busy. That was a beneficial meditation, because now you know your mind's busy and you need to slow down and take the day a little bit slower, right? If you have any impactful decisions that day, maybe you delay them. So even when your mind's really busy in meditation, that's a really beneficial meditation. So you can't look at your meditations as good or bad, because you'll go through periods of time. I remember there was like 8 weeks where the meditation was really like all over the place. The mind was all over the place. And then just one day I meditated and boom, like there was peacefulness and joy in the mind. But then that would be there for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. And then boom, there'd be discontentedness again in the mind, where it was all shaken up during meditation. And, there was all those kinds of things going on. So you can go these elongated periods of time where the mind's kind of shaken up in your meditation. But then you can experience peace in your meditation for elongated periods of time. So you need to be able to understand that this is part of the process, that your meditation is impermanent. It's going to go up and down like this, but if you're looking at your meditation and judging it as good or bad, then you're going to fall into this trap and sabotage your ability to be peaceful and joyful all the time. So just look at all meditation as beneficial. You start your meditation, you finish your meditation, and whatever happened in between, okay, that's just what happened. Either your mind was a bit more quieted and still and peaceful, or not. And it was all busy, and hey, that was beneficial too. So you're going to be doing enough meditation like this that you're not going to need to put together a plan, because you're already doing it, which is expose your mind to the meditation. So just get to the point where at the end of your meditations, you don't look at your meditation and try to judge it. It's just when you're done, I don't know if you do chanting and then you finish, or whether you just finish, just get up and go do something else. Don't even look at your meditation and try to determine if it's good or bad. And if you see your mind trying to do that, just take it in another direction. Go outside for a walk, go for a bike ride, go do some gardening, go wash some dishes, go do something that you just take the mind in the other direction, and you don't allow it to even look at the meditation to decide whether it was good or bad.
Thank you, teacher.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, looks like Joe or Adele have a question. Adela, sorry.
Yeah, it's me again, and hopefully we have time for this. I wanted to, just a little bit of background. So I grew up with in a family where my mom was a single mom. She has 4 daughters, so 4 of us. We're from a country, we're immigrants. We're from a country that was war torn. So my childhood wasn't like super kind of normal, what you would typically consider a childhood. And my mom worked a lot to provide for us and to put food on the table and all that. And so now I have I've always been reminded of that by her and by other family members, that she's she's done so much. She's sacrificed a lot of her, what her life could have been to be able to provide for us. And now I have these extreme feelings of guilt when she's unhappy, or I'm not able to provide something for her that she may need.
Okay.
I don't know if I guess it's a craving to be able to make her happy and provide something for her that would make her happy. But how would you address, situations like that, or cravings like those, and minimize those feelings of guilt?
Yeah, so this is one of those 10-20% that doesn't really fit into this category that I'm describing here about putting together a plan. What you need to be able to do in order to eliminate this craving is you need to arise some wisdom. What the wisdom that you need to arise here is to understand that whatever your mom did during your childhood in order to provide for the children, those were choices and decisions that she was making, and she made those choices and decisions. You didn't make those choices and decisions. She did. She chose to have children. She chose to not do these other activities and instead provide for the children. And those were choices that she made. And if she's unhappy with those choices that she made, then that's her decision. That you didn't contribute to those decisions. Those were her decisions that she made those. So you need to be able to not adopt this expectation or this craving for yourself to make mom happy. Because if mom is getting happy because of you, then that means it's conditional happiness. And she can only be happy when you're doing those things. So if she could only, let's use a simple example, something, trivial. Like, let's just say she got happy every time you brought her chocolate. Well, as long as you bring her chocolate, she's happy, right? But if you stop bringing her chocolate, she's not happy anymore. So she's not actually truly happy. That's discontentedness. That's conditional happiness. And that's not permanent happiness. So the idea of a child making their parent happy is actually not possible, because you're just creating the mind's craving, desire, attachment. Your mom's going to have craving, desire, attachment, and she can only be happy when you're doing certain things for her. And that's not the type of happiness that you would be interested in your mom experiencing, because you are impermanent in her life. And if she can only be happy when you're doing certain things, then she's not truly actually happy. She's actually truly discontent. So you need to be able to arise this wisdom to understand that what she did during her life, those were her choices. And your goal isn't to make her happy. Your goal is to be supportive in her life. And if she needs help, you help her, right? If you're able to help her. But her happiness has to come from within. If she's got all these expectations of what she wanted to do in the past and she never did those things, then her mind is producing that sadness or frustration or whatever that is. So you're going to need to let go of any expectation that you're putting on yourself to produce happiness for mom, and realize that that's not actually the real happiness that you're trying to produce for yourself or anybody. In order for people to truly be happy, they need to be happy from within, where they can get unconditional happiness. But with her not training her mind, of course, she's not on the path, then she's not going to be able to get to that unconditional happiness. And if you just keep trying to fulfill her conditions, that she gets conditional happiness, it actually means she's going to get painful feelings later, because she can only be happy when you're doing those things, and those things aren't permanent. So that means when you stop doing those things, she's going to experience the painful feelings. So you would like to let go of any obligation or expectations you're putting on yourself to be able to fulfill certain requirements for mom, because it's just going to sabotage her ability to be permanently happy. Okay, I see your heart there. Okay, let's see. I don't see any other questions anywhere. Let me just take a little look around here. I don't see anything else. Okay. So what I'm going to do then is just end class by thanking all of you guys for joining. Next week, we're going to be in chapter 14, which is titled Cultivating Healthy Mental States. This is where you're learning about loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. These are the 4 healthy mental states, where you're going to learn about what these healthy mental states are and the symptoms that they're antidoting. This is where the Buddha actually gets the reputation of being like a doctor, because there's certain symptoms that you'll see in your mind, and then there's a certain prescription that you apply to it. So I'm going to teach you what are those symptoms that you're going to see, and what is the prescription that you can apply to it, because you can be your very own best doctor, right? So when you learn what these 4 healthy mental states are, and you learn the symptoms that they're antidoting, anytime you see those symptoms in the mind, you bring in one of these 4 healthy mental states, and it'll eliminate those unwholesome qualities of the mind. So we're going to talk about these 4 healthy mental states: cultivating healthy mental states, loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. That's what we're going to be learning about next week. And then, of course, on Wednesday, I'm going to be doing loving kindness meditation with students, and then opening up to any and all questions that you guys might have. So thank you all for joining, and perhaps I'll see you guys in a future class. Be well and take care. Sawadee-ka. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.